Okay.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I'm here today with Dominic Picallis, and Dominic is a person that I've encountered through various pyrrole disorder Facebook groups. So pyrrole disorder is a condition that I found out I had probably about 3 years ago when I was on my health journey, and I had chronic fatigue for a year. And the key factor in actually getting rid of that chronic fatigue for me was discovering that I had pyrrole disorder and starting the supplements for that. Obviously, I think that was probably one part of the picture, but that really was the thing that took me from a place of being debilitated and fatigued into having energy again. So Dominic is someone whose story I've become interested in because he is actually training now to be a doctor because he's had his own journey with pyrrole disorder and a similar kind of recovery. So Dominic, welcome. Great to be speaking to you today.
Hi.
So first of all, I think for my readers, I mean, as we both know, most people in the world don't actually know what pyrrole disorder is. So for you as a bit more...
Not until 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know either. So, yeah, to have you, who's now learned heaps about it and is a bit of an expert, if we could just explain kind of briefly for people that don't know what pyrrole disorder is and how it affects people, that would be great.
In a nutshell, based on the latest research that I've been following, from the people who've done the most research in this, who trained the GP who treated me with such wonderful results, it's mostly a thing called oxidative stress. It does have genetic predispositions. Oxidative stress is anything which increases free radicals, oxidative activity in your body, heavy metals, toxins, even emotional, physical stress. These cause an increase in this chemical in your urine called pyrroles. It's called hydroxyhemopyrrolin. It's also being called cryptopyrrole by mistake. That's a different pyrrole altogether.
Okay.
But anyway, so this pyrrole, which is what's called pyrrole disorder, is associated with certain symptoms, and it seems to be an indicator of how much oxidative stress there is going on. And so therefore there's an association between oxidative stress now and how well your body uses zinc and B6 and other nutrients which you need to make neurotransmitters. Now that's apart from all the other stress issues on the rest of your body, but when it comes to your brain, you're unable to use certain neurotransmitters or make them properly, or you make too much of others like adrenaline, noradrenaline, things like that. So things like dopamine get turned into noradrenaline, so you don't get dopamine as much and you get more noradrenaline, which is anxiety. And pyrrole disorder means that you get less of serotonin, dopamine, and GABA,
Okay.
which is the calming one. So these lead to brain disorders like, sorry.
Go on. I was just going to say...
it's mental illness, anxiety, things like that.
Yeah.
Depression.
And is it the fact, because it's affecting neurotransmitters in the brain, I mean, because one thing I noticed when I first discovered pyrrole disorder and that I possibly might have it, was that the list of symptoms for pyrrole disorder is absolutely massive. And,
It is, yeah.
Almost anybody could pick a couple of things off that list of symptoms that they've got, but then it's the people with pyrrole disorder have actually got quite, loads of those symptoms all at the same time.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe you could...
You should never try and diagnose yourself with symptoms. If you have a lot of them, then it's an indicator you might have it. At the moment, the scientifically accepted way of diagnosing it, even though a lot of people might not even accept the word scientific when I say this, But yeah, the accepted way of testing and diagnosing is through the urine test, which is for the pyrrole, the actual pyrrole, which is the indicator of the oxidative stress, which indicates how much you are likely to benefit from the supplements.
Yeah, so my pyrrole score, which I understand if is it 10 and below, then you don't have it, and if you're 10 and above, you do. Mine was 46.
Well, mine was 46 too, 46.5.
I noticed you emailed it.
I was told yeah, that's right. I was told the upper limit, the severe limit is 20.
Okay, because some people I've seen online have
when you start getting beyond that,
the hundreds, don't they?
Yeah, it's non-linear, which means that the effect tends to drop off as the score increases. So therefore, below 50, between 0 and 50, it's kind of linear-ish, which means that it's between 0 and 50 can tell you a good idea about how severe it's likely to be. But beyond 50, it's not an exponential. It's the inverse. It's an inverse exponential. I've forgotten what it's called again. Which means that as you get beyond 50, it sort of flattens out the effect of the reading.
Okay, so it kind of doesn't matter if you've got 60 or
chemical effect. Well, yeah, a bit less. It's less important. 60 or 200 is not less important than say 50 and 40.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Okay, so let's just talk about the symptoms of pyrrole disorder. So it's mental disorders, it's depression, anxiety, that kind of thing. For me, it was obviously manifesting as fatigue as well. Perhaps you can give us some examples of how it affects people and tell us your own kind of story, because I know that you suffered for years.
Oh yeah, look, I suffered from, it's hard to tell. I think I might have suffered since I was a kid, or at least had a precursor to it. But my main problem was stress for various reasons, but it really came to the fore when I started university in Australia by myself, without much family. It was an extremely stressful situation. I had other health problems to do with stress. But I came down, I thought I had, well, didn't know quite what it was. I went to doctors, I thought I had glandular fever. Then I had the whole idea of ME came out, and what else? Epstein-Barr, EBV, that's to do with glandular fever anyway.
Yeah, I tested positive for
that. Yeah, it wasn't
Epstein-Barr, right? Epstein-Barr virus I'd had, and that was part of it.
Yeah, that's right. All the doctors couldn't say say anything. I just gave up, and I just ended up dropping out of university, trying very hard. I couldn't get out of bed. There was all sorts of things. I mean, I knew. Well, anyway, so many years later, back in '94, I eventually saw a psychiatrist for it, because it did seem to be of a psychiatric nature.
Yeah.
And I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and also various things. They couldn't quite classify me. Well, I had a great shrink. I had a great psychiatrist, but he couldn't quite classify me into any particular label. We tried various ones over the years. Bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and all sorts of things. I've been on all gamut of medications. Eventually, we found drugs that seemed to work, which kind of worked. But anyway, so I'm digressing here, but remind me what we're talking about. Yes, to do with it. Yes. Anyway, all sorts of physical problems. Yeah.
Yeah. What are the symptoms, and how did that manifest in you, and what and how does that compare to how it manifests in other people?
Well, as I said, it's oxidative stress, which can express itself. Well, it is now reckoned to be oxidative stress, which expresses itself in people in many ways, depending on how that stress came about. If it's toxic metal poisoning, you get symptoms of that too. If it's stress, as in you will get adrenal fatigue, burnout, all sorts of other things as well. I'm very lucky, I suppose, that I didn't get adrenal fatigue or any of those things. Or maybe I did, but I just got over it quickly. I don't know.
Yeah, I tested negative for that as well, even though I was.
All sorts of other. Yeah.
So it causes all sorts of other problems.
So basically, your underlying cause, your underlying cause will cause the pyrroles, but you also have to deal with that too. And then you have the pyrrole problem, which causes your neurotransmitters to be depleted or too much or whatever, and that causes even more problems. That's like a self-perpetuating cycle.
So would you say
that's why that it's
Is it fair to say that pyrrole disorder, when people identify pyrrole disorder, I mean, for me, it felt like a magic solution and that was the one thing that was wrong with me. But would it be fair to say that it's only ever a piece of someone's health picture when you've got pyrrole disorder, that there's always something else going on underlying it, and you need to kind of look into other things as well?
Yeah, there is, yeah. Well, there's apparently there are genetic variations where to do with people just genetically can't process B6 and zinc properly or something.
Okay.
But that's not really pyrrole disorder. That is the particular. Some people have supposed to be the European people, white skinned people, Nordics, Celts, and Celts, are more susceptible. It seems to be a stress or detoxifying problem.
That was what I found weird. Actually, that's when I was looking down the list of symptoms, which it would say like anxiety and stress and
pale skin,
brain fog and things like that. But pale skin and red hair and angry outbursts and things. And I'm like, this is my
that's right. That's exactly
and my family. And me too.
Well, I'm half Irish and half Scandinavian, so half German, so double whammy.
We've got some Irish in our heritage, but I'm from a family of redheads, and I've got that kind of freckly skin kind of thing. And
red hair is supposed to be something to do with copper, from what I understand, and that's one of the side things to do with pyrrole disorder, because you end up with low zinc and the body regulates it so that low zinc and high copper go hand in hand. So, and that's copper dysregulation is another thing altogether, which is sort of in the same category as this.
That kind of causes a load of problems for people as well, doesn't it? It's a load of symptoms.
Especially women.
Really? So what kind of symptoms does that cause?
Well, okay, the people who did the research, which got my treatment happening, they reckon for depression, there's about 5 different subtypes. It's not just one thing. It's not just, and they all have different biochemical causes. So for instance, pyrrole disorder, you get low neurotransmitters, low serotonin, dopamine, GABA, because you can't make them properly. But also you got high copper, and the high copper, another cause is copper dysregulation, which can happen by itself. And what copper does is it helps to turn dopamine into norepinephrine or noradrenaline. So you end up with low dopamine, high anxiety, symptoms, body, physical symptoms. And it seems to be tied in with estrogen as well. That's why it affects women so badly. Anyway, there are videos about this from the researchers themselves. They'll go into more detail.
Is this
there's pyrrole disorder? Sorry.
Is this the William Walsh research? Because I recently posted about that. The 5.
Yes, that's right. The Walsh Institute.
Yeah.
And they work with Mensa Medical, who are basically the clinical arm. Of the institute. And they have a few videos about this, especially about copper with women. Dr. Bowman has some good ones. And how that should look. My grandmother had postpartum depression pretty badly, and I think that could have been a copper thing, but you don't know.
So let's just run through exactly your symptoms. So you, from a child, pretty much, or at least around 30 years, you were suffering. You had depression, anxiety, fatigue.
Early 20s at least.
Yeah, yeah. And you couldn't work. You were on the disability pension, sorry, for a long time.
Yeah.
So really, you know, you were suffering badly.
I was on hold. I was pretty much like on freeze, in stasis, really, emotionally anyway.
So your life was on hold.
Development. Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, because you couldn't function. So, and finding out that you had pyrrole disorder, like me, was that kind of the key piece? So once you start supplementing with the B6 and zinc.
Yeah, other stuff as well. It's more complicated than that, but if you want to do it properly, that is. So, so go on.
So I was just trying to, pyrrole disorder and other things, when you found out the solutions as such, it completely changed your life, and your health is good now, and you can work again and live life again.
Oh yeah, it's pretty different. I really do have a new life. The researchers, Dr. Walsh and the others, say that if your main problem is pyrrole disorder, and like, see, as I said, in my case, I think it was stress. It was stressful situations, which was create an ongoing, self-perpetuating sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I had already started addressing the stress before I went on the treatment. So what I was left with was, I think, the physical biochemical problem, which I had to deal with, because it becomes ingrained. So I had gone to meditation and stress avoidance and management, and I had a wonderful relationship. So these things really help. And I had the DSP, which meant that I didn't have to worry about work too much. I could work at my own pace and study. But so the stress was already being dealt with. So by the time I started the SUPs, I was primed to basically, they say, if it's your main problem, if it's the only problem, there's no major underlying problems, then it will be very quick. And for me, it only took 2 weeks.
Yeah, same. Mine was about 3 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I suddenly had my energy back. I mean, I had other things to work on, saying gut health and things like that.
Sure.
I had to work on alongside it.
Yeah.
3 days later, I felt like a whole different person.
On the forums, a lot of people complained they're not getting any results. And sorry, my little cat here. And look, it's not going to work for everyone instantly, like, or as quickly as it did for us.
Yeah.
There are other issues which you need to deal with in most cases, and then we're all different. I mean, not all. It's not a one size fits all.
No, but the estimated statistics, of how many people they think have got pyrrole disorder and don't know is about 10% of the population. Am I right? Well,
if you accept this new way of looking at mental illness, this paradigm, the biochemical paradigm, they claim to have an understanding of what causes these things like depression, schizophrenia, well, at least what's involved anyway.
Yeah.
So therefore, if you accept how many statistics are of people who have depression and anxiety, and you think that there are 5 major causes of these, and one of these is pyrrole disorder, there's about 20% of this is pyrrole disorder, then you can do the math. You know what I'm saying? It's just a different way of looking at mental illness. You don't diagnose with the DSM with symptoms. You diagnose with actual objective medical tests.
Yes, yes. And this is what I find interesting, is that so it manifests as a mental health problem for which our go-to treatment has always been counselling and, psychiatrists and things like that. But, B6 and zinc pretty much made my anxiety
Well,
go
the
away.
irony, yeah, the irony is this treatment, or this avenue of treatment, was originally developed by a psychiatrist. It was a medical thing up until it got debunked in 1973. And research mainstream research really stopped on that. And, it sort of went into what I call no disrespect to the alternative practitioners, but the alternative ghetto, in the sense that it's not taken seriously by most other people.
Yeah.
So, and they kept on doing their thing, and the successors to Dr. Abraham Hoffer, who originally started this, medical scientists and all those things, serious people. They kept on doing their thing, and people kept on writing things about them, how crazy they were. But it is a thing, and it's getting to be. It is coming back, in the sense that there is more interest in doing research. The research which is needed to make it acceptable to most people.
Yeah, and that's happening, is it?
It is. The problem is finding the money to do it.
Yeah. So
these expensive trials don't get paid for by people who don't get any benefit from them, financially, that is.
So, and about universities and people like that, I mean, obviously pharmaceutical companies might not be that interested in a supplement-led treatment and researching it, but...
Well, they would be if they managed to get vitamins and minerals to be classified as pharmaceuticals, patented, but no, that's perish of thought. Well, you mentioned I was trying to become a doctor. I thought the best thing I could do with my new life and my new capacities was to become a doctor, to do this treatment the same as was done for me. But I've done a reappraisal, and it seems that the best use of my time at my age would be to go into research as a clinical psychologist or in academia.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful woman in Canterbury, University of Canterbury in New Zealand, Professor Julia Rutledge, who is doing something very similar, who came to it sort of from her own side, who didn't seem to be aware of this whole thing, but who is now apparently getting involved, throwing the weight of academia, or whatever funding they have still, to do research, pure research, into this. There are other universities involved. Griffith University have been working with the Walsh Institute. Likewise, Adelaide, or at least academics within those universities. QUT, Dr. Joan Voisey, I think, did a study on this. There's stuff published. So that seems to be the best avenue for this, which is what I would like to get into myself.
Yeah. So your dream now is to, prevent other people suffering in the way that we both have.
Well, look, if you want to look upon it this way, this has been going on since the 50s. This has been known about, got debunked in 1973. I will say this, that Dr. Hoffer said he didn't take it personally because he's a professional and it didn't really affect him personally, except maybe as a human being. But it did affect me personally.
Yeah.
I'm probably not very objective about this, but I do take it personally. So, yeah. I know what it's like. I've been there.
Yeah, exactly. And I know the results from, how I felt 3 days before I started that supplementation, like 3 days after. And it was miraculous. And, you've got doctors telling you need to do counselling, and you've got anxiety, and it's, in your head, and it's a mental problem, and it was supplements.
Well,
and I just think, how many people are there out there that could be helped if we just had a better handle on nutritional biochemistry and testing people for these.
Oh, yeah.
And it is science. You know, I don't care whether the evidence and the peer-reviewed studies that make everyone else happy are there yet. The evidence is in my body and in my life. And
there are clinical studies, outcome studies, which do say the same thing. It's just that they need to tick all the boxes. They need the randomized, controlled, placebo trials, and they're very expensive, the big ones anyway.
Yeah.
So that's really it, yeah.
I guess my message to people would be, you know, don't sort of doggedly stick with whatever is just evidence-based. If you're suffering and you're not well, look into other things, because there are other things where the evidence and the science has not yet caught up, but they are real and they are being looked into. And, you know, this could be, you know, and it's widespread, I'm sure, like, you know, the estimated statistics, people have got this are massive. So look into it, you know, this is what I'm always saying to people, go and see a nutritional medicine doctor, find a good holistic doctor.
That's right.
Work with them.
And also another thing is, when someone claims to have debunked something, you need to look into how they did it, or what evidence they used. Because I wrote my own I started a website, wrote my little article about this whole thing. The evidence which was used in 1973 to debunk this whole field was actually pretty bogus itself. It was a misunderstanding of the whole. It was fairly biased in that they didn't actually get any advice from the people who actually knew how this worked. They just simply went off on their own bat and did their interpretation of what it was all about, and it was all pretty much a straw man thing. And you can see that they had a preconceived idea of what was going to happen anyway. It's all based on misunderstandings. And the cryptopyrrole thing, they went looking for a chemical which wasn't there, because there had been publications that it wasn't there. It was not cryptopyrrole. It was this thing called HBr. So
that was a misunderstanding, and it was debunked based on that.
Misunderstanding. Well, sometimes I'm going to get a bit tinfoil hat here, but you have to wonder it's very hard to tell the difference between incompetence and malice. Sometimes. I really do believe the people who conducted this had their own agenda. They had their own. There were conflicts of interest.
Yeah.
So, and it was made to look as if it was tickety-boo, but there wasn't really.
Yeah. So what do you think should happen now? I mean, as far as nutritional medicine go, I mean, to my thinking, we need to study this. If the science is not there and people are not accessing these treatments, and your general GP is not referring people on to a nutritional medicine doctor when they're suffering and they could be helped, we need to find this evidence. We need to put the money behind it and start, because this is what's actually fixing people with chronic disease, not drugs.
Well, I think the key point is money. That's right. That's what it requires. That's what you need these days to get anything accepted, to conduct the experiments, to do the trials, lobby politicians, all these things.
Yeah.
There's simply no money in it for any one particular person or organization or whatever. These are vitamins and minerals, food.
Yeah.
In larger amounts than you get from food, but still, nothing you can patent, really.
Yeah, and that just, it's tough, isn't it? It seems a shame.
Which is why we are going to rely on government and academia, which is pretty much government.
So that's where we should be looking to and create the studies on them. Yeah, okay.
Look, I happen to believe, as far as government is concerned, that the benefits from having productive, happy, non-mentally ill citizens who can produce more and pay more tax and don't need so many health services and all those things is incalculable.
Yeah, well, when you look, I just found a statistic the other day writing a piece for my website, which I haven't put up yet, but it's 50% of people are chronically diseased. 50% in Australia suffering with a chronic disease.
Yeah, well, there you are.
Like, it just seems an insane amount. Like, it's an epidemic, isn't it? And we're like, what, you know, and considering we're not fixing it, they're going to the doctors and they're managing it with drugs and they're managing it in the ways that they can. But because they're not finding the root causes and looking into the nutritional aspects and the lifestyle aspects, they're just going to stay sick ultimately.
Yeah, it seems to be a self-perpetuating system in that you need the studies to validate the findings, but there's no validated findings to motivate people to spend the money on the result, the research.
I guess people like us just have to keep talking about it, really. That's why I've been so impressed with actually training, you know, in the system and trying to change things from the inside. I mean, my idea is to just write about it online, but yeah, it needs to be something that people need to know.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I will. I'm going to add some little linkies to your site, biochemicalhealth.org. On this,
Thank you.
Write a little bit more, but yeah, thanks.
I'm making no money from this whatsoever.
No, neither am I. Nobody's making any money. But that's
anyway. I can make a career out of it, but that's a different thing.
Yeah, that is a different. Hopefully, I will too. Helping people and sharing the right information.
That's right.
Well, thanks so much for your time today, Dominic. I really appreciate it. It's been great chatting to you.
Thank you, Claudine.
No worries.
Okay.
Soon. Bye.
All right.